Hello! Today we are here to talk about anticipated releases, which I always love to do. And I have to say, compared to the last couple of years, I feel like 2026 is shaping up to have more surprising or new to me author releases that I'm interested in. And that's exciting because I just think some of the trend cycles in publishing haven't totally, in some genres more so than others, haven't totally been to my taste. So there's just been less that I've been actively excited about outside of kind of ongoing series. And I feel like this year, a little more getting back to kind of stuff that I'm interested in. So that's exciting. What I'm going to do is I'm only going to have this cover April to July releases because the list was actually getting quite long and I decided I wanted to keep this a little more digestible. So we'll go from April to July releases, and then I'm going to organize this kind of how I've been doing it the last couple years. I'm going to start with sequels and series that I'm already interested in. Then we'll talk about books from authors I've read from before. And then the largest category is books from authors that I haven't read from before. So, okay, let's get into it. Series continuations that I am excited about. First, we have The Clockhouse Murders by Yoshito Ayatsuji. This is already out in the UK in the English translation, but it isn't here in the US yet. But I am very much looking forward to that. I have heard it is another banger. Along in Speaking Silence by Niveau is the next entry in the Cleric Chi series. I forget what that overall series is called, but anyway, I love this. I look forward to this release every year. I think this is, to me, maybe what the Shauna Maguire Wayward Children series is to other people, of just extremely consistent and always enjoyable. And I also like the Wayward Children series, but it's a little more variable to me in my enjoyment. But this is another Tor.com novella fantasy series, and it is just my jam. Then we have She Walks at Night by Seishi Yokomizo. This is the next in the Detective Kindaichi series that's being translated by Pushkin Press. And yeah, I'm behind in the series, but I am making progress. I am catching up. So I'm hoping I will be caught up by the time this new release comes out. Wouldn't that be thrilling? And then the last in a series that's coming out in the next few months is Death at the Museum by Janice Hallett. This is the second book in her new middle grade series she started last year. She does these mixed media mysteries, which I love. And I wouldn't say that I loved her first entry in this middle grade series. I'm not sure how I feel about her voice for that age of book, but I enjoyed it enough that I definitely would like to keep going in it. And yeah, we'll see. I think I'll know from this book if it's one I want to keep going with or if I've kind of had enough. Okay, and then I've got a few books from authors that I have read from before. So the first is The Unicorn Hunters by Catherine Arden. I feel like that is not news to anyone who pays attention to new releases. This is very hype, but it's a historical fantasy, and the kind of log line is, in a desperate gamble to save her throne, a young monarch conceals a secret marriage in the shadows of an enchanted forest and unknowingly alters the fate of her world. I'm primarily interested in this because it's set in a medieval European kind of fantasy. I think it's like medieval Europe, but fantasy. So that is what drew me to it. I did really enjoy the Bear and the Nightingale trilogy. So yeah, I think it's one that I probably will wait and see what reviews are like, but it's on my radar. Then The Library After Dark by Ande Pelego. This, I read a book from this author last year that I enjoyed. I think other people loved. I enjoyed it. It was an isolation trope, which you guys know I love. Side note, we have an entire section dedicated to isolation trope new releases. That, I will say, has been a trend for the last few years that has made me personally very happy. I hope that continues. But the log line on this is, a bookseller must escape the infamously haunted library that holds her darkest secrets, but with a murderer in her tour group, escaping alive is not as simple as it seems. So yeah, I read You Were Fatally Invited last year. The idea of a haunted library with a murderer in it sounds rad to me. So I think that will be a library pick for me. Then A Cute Little Murder by Molly Harper. So I've read a number of Molly Harper's speculative romances from the probably late aughts in through the teens. I've not read a new book from her in a while, but I do think she's a very good writer. And this description sounds like kind of almost like the Hardy Boys, but gender swapped. And it's years later. One of them went on to be a famous detective, and the other one was sort of her sidekick, and she now, you know, isn't in the limelight. But the one that stayed famous, like, ropes her into a decades-old disappearance of a starlet from a once glamorous, now decrepit island hotel. I couldn't totally tell if this is an isolation trope or not, but I am pretty sure that that's one I'm going to read. I know the writer is, like, a strong writer, and that just seems like a really fun and very me premise, very entertaining. And then the last one from authors that I've read from before is The Ending Writes Itself by Evelyn Clark. Evelyn Clark is a nom de plume of Kat Clark, who I don't think I've read from before, and V.E. Schwab, who I have read from before. And this is definitely an isolation trope. 6 authors, 1 private island, 72 hours to write the ending that will change their lives. I am pretty neutral on V.E. Schwab. Like, I wouldn't say that I'm a huge fan. I think she definitely is a writer with strengths and weaknesses, I guess is maybe the way I would say it. So I'm neither a fan nor a non-fan, but that is definitely a premise for me. It's very hyped, so I imagine that there will be a lot of people reading it, so I think it'll be one that is up my alley and lets me kind of get in on the hype. So I'm online for it at the library. We'll see how long it takes to get to me, because I know it's going to be very popular. So like I said, I have an entire section of isolation trope type books. But before we get to that, we'll just do some random books in different genres. So I have a couple of sort of mystery, thriller, adventure-y type books that I'm keeping an eye on. One is The Lost Book of Elizabeth Barton by Jennifer N. Brown. This is a dual timeline murder mystery set in an English country manor when an ambitious professor discovers the long-lost manuscript of a Reformation-era prophetess. That kind of premise is very much the type of historical mystery I enjoy. I'm usually a tough sell on a dual timeline, but in this case where it's like centuries apart, it works for me a little bit better than when things are closer in time together. So I'm really excited about that one. Very much up my alley. I'm hoping it's going to be a little Dan Brown-esque. We'll see. I love, you guys, I'm a sucker for sort of fun, campy adventure romping. So I hope will be a little bit a part of that, but we'll find out. Then we have Artifacts by Natalie Limley. This is another one that's sort of a professorial thriller type. So Natalie Limley's debut novel offers an insider view into the world of stolen artifacts and the hidden networks that link museums to organized crime when a woman is forced to remember the summer she spent on an archaeological dig in Italy, as everyone she knew then may now be in danger. So again, one I'll keep my eye on, probably would be a library pick for me, but I like the idea of smuggled artifacts. I think that sounds fun. Yeah, I'm a sucker for academic thriller. I think academic thrillers to me are maybe what dark academia is to other people. It just is like a buzzword for me. Then we have The Redemption Center is Closed on Sundays by Andrea Hairston. The logline on this one was an extra-dimensional murder mystery with conundrums, alien tricksters, and a dog detective who just doesn't know the meaning of stay. The cover kind of intrigued me. The vibe intrigues me. I think that's an interesting logline. I really love a sci-fi mystery. That's something that is very much my jam. So yeah, we'll kind of see what people are saying about this one, but that is on my radar for a mystery. And then the last kind of mystery thriller thing before we get into something that's a little bit more horror is How to Kill a Crime Writer by Sarah Lotz. This is one that I have as a digital ARC, so I will definitely be reading this. And it's after the untimely death of her best-selling crime novelist mother, a young woman teams up with the fictional ghost of the heroine from her mother's series in order to solve her mother's murder. that kind of metatextual speculativeness is very appealing to me, which is why I decided to get this one. But yeah, I think that will be very execution dependent. I could see that being a book I end up really not enjoying, but I'm hopeful. I think that sounds very entertaining. Okay, moving on to horror. I've got two campy slasher horror books. Both of these I hope I get to. I think that these I might not get to this year, but next year when I have more room for library reading, I could see these being books I get to. Slasher Summer by E.L. Chen is in this campy love letter to the slasher films of the 1980s. 7 friends reunite for a weekend of fun, only to be hunted down by a cold-blooded killer, but the real horror is not being able to escape who you were in high school. So that's one slasher one. And then the other one has a very similar premise, but it's at a camp. So The Summer Fun Massacre by Craig DeLuey. Surviving the massacre is just the beginning of this razor sharp take on the summer camp slasher from horror master Craig DeLuey. So both of those I think sound really fun. I think I will get to both of those eventually. And The Summer Fun Massacre is particularly intriguing to me. 1, because I keep meaning to try Craig DeLuey, and 2, I love Sleepaway Camp. It is so, I can't even express to you how much I love that movie. It's so bonkers. And so it has some of the most interesting gender dynamics in a movie I think I've ever seen. Like I've read essays about it, and I could read a whole book just essays about that movie. Anyway, very intrigued by that. And then the last one is I Know a Place by Nat Cassidy. Nat Cassidy is a horror author I keep meaning to try, kind of like Craig DeLuey, but I haven't gotten to him yet. And this is going to be a short story collection. So I'm very intrigued to start my Nat Cassidy journey there, because I really enjoy horror short stories, honestly, sometimes more than full novels. And I think it'll be a good way to get a sense of the kinds of stories he tells. So I'm excited to get to that one. Okay, and then I've got 3 romances. Are all of these speculative? Yes, these are all speculative romances to one degree or another. So Strange Familiars by Kesha Chow is 2 scholars of magical veterinarian science must put aside their lust and loathing to save the world in the first installment of this whimsical, romantic, and dark academia duology. I am so into the idea of a magical veterinarian school. That sounds amazing. It does sound like Enemies to Lovers, which I don't know about, and the fact that it's using dark academia makes me wonder if it's going to be too angsty for me, but I think I'll end up checking that out because that just sounds fun. Then, oh yeah, this one I'm definitely going to read. Maggie and Arthur's Magical Moment by Leslie Renee. A dangerous spell gone wrong forces the passionate professor of incantations to share tight quarters with her magical college's leading and most brooding alchemist. It's a magical Grump Sunshine forced proximity. Buzzwords, buzzwords, buzzwords for me. Speaking of buzzwords, the last one is Trope by Lauren Oakey. This is one that I want to hear what people think about it, because I want to figure out if it's mostly a contemporary romance. I don't know that this will be for me, but if it truly does have pretty strong speculative elements to it, I'm going to be more interested in it. So Trope by Lauren Oakey. In this lush, slow-burning romance, 2 childhood neighbors connected by a shared tragedy unexpectedly reunite to ghostwrite a love story for a reclusive author. So that doesn't appeal to me so much, but it says, spending the summer at her secluded Hamptons estate, they soon discover that dozens of classic romance tropes, including the ones they're crafting on page, are mysteriously playing out in real life. So if it's mysteriously playing out in real life because there's something like haunted or speculative or magical, that I think I will be into. If it's just like contemporary, I think maybe less so. But it's on my radar. I'm going to kind of keep an ear out for what people are saying about it. Okay, and then 2 nonfiction ones before we get to the isolation picks. This Land Is Your Land, A Road Trip Through U.S. History by Beverly Gage. It says, right along with a Pulitzer Prize winning historian as she travels the country to see the museums, historic sites, roadside attractions, reenactments, and souvenir shops where Americans learn and fight our history. It offers a guided tour of 13 places and 13 key moments that define America's greatest successes and challenges. I'm going to just put this on my list for the library. I could see that being something that I would enjoy reading, but not with any urgency. But I thought that sounded fun. And then this one I am going to read sooner rather than later. The Black Death, A Global History of Humanity's Most Devastating Pandemic by Thomas Asbridge. Assuming that this gets decent reviews. I'm a sucker for plague history. So yeah, that is definitely going on the list. Okay, and then let's get to a few different isolation trope ones that I've got on my list. One is The Caretaker by Marcus Kelwer. So I haven't read We Used to Live Here, which I think is his biggest book. That sounds right. I know he has a big horror book, but this one is an isolation trope, so I'm excited for it. Comes a supernatural horror about a young woman who accepts a caretaking job from Craigslist. That was her first mistake, only to discover the position has consequences for greater and more dangerous, far greater and more dangerous than she could have ever imagined. And the ad reads, exciting opportunity, caretaker urgently needed, 3 days of work, competitive pay, serious applications only. So I think that sounds like a book for me. As does Safari Murder Party. Oh yeah, okay. Both Safari Murder Party and The Night Hunter by Natalie Moss. We're going to talk about both of those, so I guess I'll just do those together. Both of these I think sound like isolation thrillers that are kind of playing on The Greatest Game. I think that's what that short story is called, but like people hunting, which I like that as a thriller premise. So Safari Murder Party by Rachel Moore says, in this darkly funny, slightly unhinged, heart-pounding thriller, two office rivals must team up to escape wild animals and even wilder co-workers on a corporate retreat gone wrong. And then The Night Hunter by Natalie Moss says, in a remote quarter of the South African bush, two sisters reunite to bury a family secret once and for all. But when they're stranded among the wild animals, they find a predator far more dangerous waiting for them in the shadows. So both of those sound like safari / African settings where maybe people are getting hunted. I don't know. We'll see. I think Safari Murder Party, just based on the title, sounds campier and probably therefore the one I would pick between the two. But I'm going to keep my ears open for reviews of both. Okay, and then this one I have an arc of, The Death Row Club by V.A. Vasquez, a dark, dazzling, original psychological thriller about a woman invited to an annual weekend getaway for the adult children of serial killers. But when one of the participants ends up dead, they begin to wonder if someone among them might be carrying on the family traditions. I'm hoping the psychological thriller part is going to be like just the serial killer component of this. If it ends up being that it's all in someone's head, so help me, I will be so mad. But I'm gonna read that one. Okay, and then this is technically a sequel, and so I might go, if I read this and enjoy it, I might go back and read the first one. But okay, it's called Sex on Murder Island by Joe Firestone. Such a campy title, love that. A secret island enclave for the super rich, a dead billionaire, a one-of-a-kind detective. I will say, I'm hoping this is going to be campy and fun. In the shadow of, you know, the Epstein files of it all, this could be darker than the title suggests, and if so, I don't think it will be for me. But if it is truly an isolation, campy Sex on Murder Island, then that is for me. So we'll see. And then the last one that I think, this is more horror, but I do think that this has a strong isolation component in the premise, it sounds like. So I'm excited. The Sea Hides Its Dead by Megan Bontrager, not sure. The Descent meets the Ritual in a cult aquatic horror about a group of academics trapped in a sea cave who must reckon with eldritch horrors as they are forced to atone for their greatest sins. This sounds to me like horror aquatic and then there were none. So I'm very intrigued by that one. I think I will end up picking that up. Okay, yeah. So those are my April to July picks. I'll come back in July and tell you guys what I'm looking at for the rest of the year. But like I said, I'm feeling optimistic. I feel like we got more on the docket that is appealing to me coming out than I have in a while. So I'm feeling heartened by that. Let me know if you have any ones I didn't mention that are coming out soon. I don't repeat ones I've already mentioned in previous videos. I may have talked about it in the last anticipated read video I did, but yeah, feel free to remind me nonetheless, just in case I missed it. Yeah, I think that does it for me. I hope you're doing well. I hope you're taking care of yourself, your friends, your family, your community. Be well, hit the bell, subscribe, all that stuff, and we'll just talk soon. Bye! bye.